I used to work with veterinarians. I helped deliver calves with veterinarians on house calls, and I really like the veterinary world, and I spent a lot of time with veterinarians. And when I realized, I saw older age cats go into what we call pulmonary edema, meaning that it's like heart failure, but it's not recognized like that. It's recognized where a cat or a dog can have dreadful fatigue, for example, but it's the heart, basically. But a lot of these things go unnoticed. Dogs and cats can cough, for example, and it's basically a form of heart failure, but it goes unnoticed. And dogs and cats, like humans, can develop sudden death, and from cardiac arrhythmias and stuff like that. So the important thing here is, as a heart specialist, I really feel that whether it's a human or whether it's a four-legged friend, a cat or a dog, I really believe in the merits of coenzyme Q10. I mean, I believe 100% that CoQ10 cannot only give you a better quality of life or your pet a better quality of life, but it may also add years to their lives. And when people love their pets, if they can get a year, 2 or 3 or more years longevity out of a pet, I mean, that's Nirvana. I mean, that's incredible. I wanted to give so much back to pets because, pets saved my patients' lives. I know that for a fact. I mean, I know that owning a pet has incredible dividends. So I wanted to give something back to the animal kingdom. I've done a lot of research on CoQ10. Like I said, I published in the equine model, a rat model, the human model. I've done a lot of research on CoQ10. And since empirically my dogs outlived their counterparts, I worked with Tishcon Laboratories and I developed CoQ10 drops to give the animals. Yeah. And the important thing here is, if an animal is eating raw meats, so to speak, or raw flesh, they're getting CoQ10 in the diet. But if an animal is eating dried grains, which are okay, I mean, but if they're not getting, remember CoQ10 as well as carnitine, they're found in animal flesh. They're not found in the vegetarian kingdom. When it comes to pets, and you give them a diet that's omega-3s and CoQ10, et cetera, it is so good for that animal, as opposed to, giving a pet a total vegetarian diet. They're not going to get the omega-3 and the CoQ10 that nature, provides them in sort of like a meat diet. I see these commercials on TV about feeding your dog or pet, a vegetarian diet, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's good to an extent, but remember, your cat and your dog, they have, carnivorous teeth. They don't have herbivorous teeth like humans have. They have the canine, they have flesh-searing teeth. So basically, these animals need, meat, for example, in their diet because they're carnivorous genetically. And that's why CoQ10 is good, because if you give a cat or a dog, a meat diet, or a fish diet, they're going to get a lot of CoQ10 in the diet. Unfortunately, a lot of animals don't. And that's why I developed these food toppers, because the food toppers, if you look at them, a lot of them come from organ meats and flesh. Mm-hmm. So they're sort of CoQ10 enriched. And I always had that in my mind, thinking that, I like to find food. So when I visited, the facility and everything else, I saw the food sources of the CoQ10. And I was encouraged by that, because the toppers contain natural food ingredients that are sort of endowed with CoQ10. I mean, Look at liver. Liver, for example, is loaded with CoQ10. Turkey heart, loaded with CoQ10. Flesh, any flesh is loaded with CoQ10. Migratory salmon, loaded with CoQ10. I would not give a kitten or a puppy CoQ10. Okay. The reason being is, a puppy and a cat, just like a human, you make CoQ10. In other words, all our cells make CoQ10 in the body. It's the best antioxidant around. I mean, it protects us from everything, including COVID-19. I mean, CoQ10 is the perfect anti-inflammatory. So as far as a puppy or a kitten or a human under the age of 40, I don't think you need CoQ10 because you can get enough from the diet, even if you live in a toxic environment. Older dogs approaching 6, 7, 8, 9, and above, definitely give CoQ10.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah, yeah.
Definitely, and cats as well. Basically, I've been a pet lover all my life. I'll never forget this. I was only about 25 years old. I was a fourth-year medical student. And I named these two Malamutes. I was working with a surgeon from New York City who moved to Alaska just to get out of the frenzy of New York City. And he sent me a baby Malamute in the mail. It came into Albany Medical Center when I was an intern.
Okay.
So I had that dog for 5 years. Unfortunately, she died suddenly. We found out she had a congenital heart lesion because of too much intermating of the dogs.
Okay.
But ever since that event, I always wanted to improve the health of dogs. I had a Norwegian elk hound that I picked up, in my early 40s. And then I picked up a chow, and then another chow. So I had 3 dogs now. And in Connecticut, I wanted the 4th dog, but then I had to get a kennel license. And I said, wait a minute, I don't want to do that. But since my patients were doing better on CoQ10, I started to feed my dogs, my 3 dogs now, sardines, migratory salmon, foods that were endowed with CoQ10, like liver, for example, calf's liver, chicken livers, things like that. So I was feeding them these foods that had copious amounts of CoQ10, and I noticed that their coats were better. They had more energy, just like my patients.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to the vet anymore. I was saying to myself, geez, if I can keep my dogs out of the veterinary office, give them better coats, more energy, better gingival, because, dogs get gingivitis just like, humans do. And CoQ10 resurrects the ginger in humans as well as hearts. I was saying, oh, this is great. So I gave my dogs these CoQ10 fortified foods. Then I started to give them real CoQ10 when they were 5, 6, and 7. And here's what happened. They died at very, very old ages. I mean, the average elk hound lives to about 13 or 14. Mine was 16. The average chow lives about 12, maybe 11, 12. Mine were both 15. So, I went back to the archives, I went back through the literature, and I said, wait a minute. Could CoQ10 literally improve the longevity of a dog? Is that possible? I know we showed it in rats. I did studies in rats where they had better energy, and the CoQ10 treated rats outlived their placebo counterparts. But I was wondering with dogs, and this was an interesting speculation of mine. You could probably do it anyway. In other words, I would adapt to what the pet wants. In other words, if it's easy for you, it's one thing. But in other words, we got to get it into the pet. That's the important point. Now, cats, they might be finicky because they're finicky with diets. I mean, again, because I've had cats myself. A cat can go to a diet, all of a sudden lap up a certain diet like sardines or fish. Then all of a sudden, a week later, stub their nose at it. I've seen it happen, with cats. Cats are fussy. They really are. One of the ways I gave my dogs CoQ10 was I just, put droplets on their foods, I also used to give them CoQ10 capsules where I would bite into the capsule myself because it's a soft gel, and I would squeeze it out, into their food.
Well, it's like
I don't like every single meal, to be honest with you. I like a little variety.
Yeah.
So basically, if I was going to use a food topper, I would probably say every other.
Okay.
Because again, I don't like to give a human or an animal a nutrient day in and day out. For example, if a human eats chicken every single day, could the human develop a chicken allergy if they keep having it 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month? It keeps going on. I think they can. I mean, we've seen a lot of food allergies in humans. Peanuts, milk, chicken. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I think the same thing could be true with pets. So I would say every other day. Now, it's kind of interesting. The treats, these pets devour these treats. I can tell you. I mean, we've had testimonials from people, even where dogs or cats, they were finicky with treats. These treats they really like, probably because they're natural. They're really natural, and there's no preservatives, and the treats have one component in it. That's it. It's the flesh. You know what I mean? There's no additives or anything else in it. And I think that the pet intrinsically knows that, and basically, I just find the treats that they just devour all the time. I've never seen a pet snub at the treats. But again, would you give the treats every day?
It's like
Maybe
a snack.
4 or 5 days a week. I think cats and dogs, if you give them the same food day in and day out, I think intuitively they know that it's the same old thing, the same old thing. And I think variety is really important for these animals. One thing about cats that concerns me is sometimes they get overweight. And I've seen overweight cats. I think I've seen cats that are 30 pounds. That's why I like your feeders. See, your feeders will prevent, overweighted animals because, they're fed. In other words, once they finish it, they're done.
Yeah.
And if people realize that, that's really important because there's nothing worse than an overweight cat or an overweight dog because now, they may get cardiomyopathy or weakening of the heart, but these overweight animals, they get locomotor problems, they get joint problems as well. So it's important for humans to realize that you don't want to get your animals into an overweight state. Now, diabetes occurs in the animal kingdom as well. I mean, horses get it, dogs get it, cats get it. So one of the reasons why I really like your feeders is because now they have a controlled mechanism where they're not going to get overweight status. And as a doctor, I really believe in that. I mean, that's really important for us to realize because you do not want to overfeed your pet. So many people say, oh, we're going to they want it, they like it, et cetera, et cetera. But as a devil's advocate, too much of a good thing when they're gaining weight puts a strain on their organs and their joints as well. So you have to be careful as a pet owner.
Well,
Some people believe feeding a dog once a day is a good thing. There's controversy on this. I personally think feeding a dog twice a day is what I did. And the thing is, you can always give snacks in between. In other words, I'm a big believer in snacks and treats, especially when you're training a dog. And dogs look forward to treats as well as cats. So I'm not a big fan of feeding 5-6 times a day or 3 square meals a day to a dog or a cat. I don't favor that in humans. I mean, I'm a big believer in doing modified fasting in humans as a heart specialist. And remember, dogs and cats are like humans. We're all mammals. So, they get heart disease. They get cardiomyopathy. And heart disease is the #1 killer in humans. And as a heart specialist, I think, just like in humans, the more you fast, or if you eat 1 meal a day as opposed to 3 meals a day, I prefer 1 meal a day and maybe 1 small snack a day as a human. And I could correlate that to our 4-legged friends as well. I certainly wouldn't feed them more than 3 or 4 times a day. And I've seen a lot of patients of mine would feed their dogs. Oh, doctor, they love it. They love to eat. They love to eat. And people are unknowingly, they're causing harm in their animals by overfeeding them. I mean, how many people are awakened by their pets? Whether they have to, do their business outside or whether they're hungry. And, so I really like that idea, an early morning meal for a pet. And, some pets like to eat more in the morning as opposed to the evening. I mean, I've seen that because I've had multiple pets in my lifetime. So I would say if your pet chooses to have their major meal at night, then or in the late evening, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. I wouldn't feed after that, but basically, if you want to give a meal then and a meal in the early morning, I mean, I think twice a day for a pet is really adequate. And treats in between, because again, the treats you can always give them. See, a lot of these treats, their organ meats and their animal flesh and stuff like that, and basically they do have calories to it, but again, they're so fortified that it's not like eating a meal; it's just a treat. And I think treats are good for pets because pets are like humans. As a cat person and as a dog person for decades, this is music to my ears. I love the idea of these feeders. I mean, the running water aspect intrigues me because cats like running water.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And look, how many patients have told me, and myself as well, when dogs, go to the toilet bowl to, lap up the toilet bowls and stuff like that. I mean, even when you leave dogs at home for over a day and you don't come back, people don't realize this, but I think these feeders with the running water is really good. The only caution I have with a feeder, and I'm sure you tell your clients this, is that you have to clean them from time to time.
Yes.
Yes. In other words, it's the same thing having a water filter, let's say, in your home. Like a lot of people in their homes, when it's very dry and hot, they'll have these air purifiers.
Yeah.
And they'll add water to an air purifier, and basically it humidifies the air. It's great for the mucous membranes. There's no doubt about it. But what people need to understand is if they keep adding water and water and water and they don't clean it over weeks at a time, well, then bacteria and other bad guys can settle in there, fungus and stuff. Anything can happen, and now you're spreading this out through the air. So I'm sure you tell your clients, to clean the water filter, periodically. It's losing a pet is like it's horrific for people. It's really it's a tragedy. There's no doubt about it. And if you can give them a better quality of life, if you can control their food, with your apparatus, so to speak, and you can control their calories. If you give them hydration, I mean, let's face it, a lot of cats get dehydrated. Exactly. They get urinary tract problems. Yeah. They get, kidney stones and all that stuff. I mean, dehydration in cats is a serious issue. And the problem is that if you can give them back hydration easily and give them back calories and control their intake in a safe manner, and give them vitamin and mineral support, now you have the perfect trifecta for your cat going forward to live in a good quality of life. So I think what I'm doing in my world and what you're doing in your world is really like birds of a feather. You know what I mean? We flock together, and I think we can do a lot of good for people out there who own dogs and cats because it just makes a lot of sense.